Okay, major discovery alert. You have been lied to. There is not one piece. In fact, there are two pieces. That's right. I think I've actually found another One Piece. One that almost all of you have heard of before, but perhaps have never noticed. The big spice I clocked was when I realised Kureha and Carmel have tons of really strange ties. Then I noticed that Carmel was born 2 years before Kureha. There's a few characters that are really old, seem to know a ton about devil fruits, seem to have special powers, and seem to have connections to the God Valley incident. We even got one in 1079. But what's crazy is there might actually be another One Piece, a mini One Piece, and Buggy might finish this story sitting atop it. I'm not joking, I'm super serial right now. You're already probably familiar with what it is, but even then I'm not sure if we actually do know what it is. Anywho, sub and stick around to the end, it helps a load, and let's get straight into this. The first major spice we found was that Carmel talked about one big final score. 38 years before that quote was when she freed the giants from Marineford. 38 years after that quote is the God Valley incident. 38 years after that is the Lalesia incident. This suggests every 38 years some sort of crazy event happens, potentially involving gods. This is also pretty similar to the whole 22-year gap we see throughout the stories such as the O'Hara. But what was Xebec doing at God Valley? He was after one final score. Yep. Same words Carmel used, who just so happened to be eaten by who? Big Mom. Big Mom then went on to join the Rock's crew and ultimately played a major part in the God Valley incident, at one point even saving Kaido by giving him his devil fruit. Considering Big Mom looks skinny and acts like an adult, not a child, when she's on Rock's crew, it indicates Xebec had the Yami Yami Nomi, the darkness fruit. This would give context to what Big Mom meant when she said she gave Kaido a fruit as well. I think the Yami's power stopped Carmel controlling Big Mom through the Soro Nomi, and in doing so, Big Mom could access some of Carmel's memories, similar to what we saw when she had Mother Carmel's flashbacks. Sorry if that's a lot to digest, I do have a recent video on this you can check out, which gives you everything you need to know about how crazy spicy Big Mom is as a character, and her ties to Stroizen and Carmel, etc. But the point is, if Big Mom could access Carmel's memories, it's very likely it was her who gave the idea of the big score to Xebec. Not only this, but when we see Kaido and Big Mom speak for the first time, he said the words, "I have a big score to sell," which is definitely another nod to the big score at God Valley. After the God Valley incident, the world is told Rox is dead. The super crew break up and Captain John disappears with treasure that he ultimately hides. This is what Oda had to say in response to a question about John's treasure. The man whose treasure Buggy and the crew were searching for had become a zombie at Thriller Bark. Look close at Captain John's stomach. He has several slashes in his belly and 2 swords sticking right out. These were the marks left when his crew killed him for keeping the treasure a secret from them. John died and the location of the treasure became a legend, lost forever, which is SBS 49 by the way. From this we can gather that Oda intentionally had 2 blades piercing John as character design, but how is that relevant? The answer lies in where the treasure was hidden. What we know is that Luffy discovered a treasure finder that can guide the user to John's treasure, amongst the haul Nami took from Moria. Luffy chooses to take the armband because he liked the look of it, oblivious to what it actually is, and ultimately hands it to Buggy later in the story in Impel Down. Nami allows Luffy to take the armband because there's no gems on it, thus she thinks it has no value. This shows the different states of mind between Nami and Luffy, particularly as Nami seems to have some uncanny navigating abilities that mean she might not even need a treasure finder. Amongst the treasure Nami hands over to Lola is another golden whale-tail cross, just like in Skypiea. The panel after this says there's a storm coming, all of which indicates a parallel to the past, and also makes me think that John's treasure isn't jewels. Other than that, all we know is it's hidden on an island with a skull on it. Now there's 2 major options here. Firstly, we have Onigashima. It was recently flying around Wano and being blasted with a load of holes, making it seemingly unlikely. However, what is interesting is if it is on Onigashima, it would give more context to why Kaido wanted to pick it up and plop it on the flower capital. Maybe he thought it would wake Pluton or tie to the Joy Boy prophecy. One other thing, we have a video about how God Valley is actually Marineford. What is bizarre is that Marineford had these Wano-like pillars randomly on the corners of the island. Now considering we've seen Kaido flying Onigashima, it's possible God Valley was removed from Marineford, leaving the pillars behind. Potentially it could be Enies Lobby. I mean, they look very similar, right? But that's for another time. Getting a bit wild there, but let's face it, Oda has already had an island zooming around the sky in Wano, so it's not totally impossible. More likely, however, is the pirate island Hachinosu. The rocky port incident where Kobe became hero of the Marines is where Blackbeard overthrew Ochuko, another Rocks pirate who was at the God Valley incident. This means Ochuko was the previous ruler. So Rock, Xebec, Ochuko and Blackbeard all have ties to Hachinosu, and it just so happens to be an island with a massive skull in the dead center. Also, when Sengoku introduced John, he was introduced alongside Shiki and Ochuko, so it wouldn't surprise me if John had the treasure on Hachinosu and was betrayed by Shiki and Ochuko, who went on to rule Hachinosu himself. So I think the blades in John's stomach are a reference to all that, and a big hint that the treasure is actually under Hachinosu. Anyways, what is the secret treasure then? Well, whatever John's treasure is what Carmel wanted, that one big score. It's the reason Xebec went to God Valley. It also ties to Buggy, as he's relentlessly searching for it. So a meme could very well be Buggy runs Hachinosu after he finds John's treasure at the very end of the story. Then if it does turn out to be a mini version of the One Piece, it would make Buggy a mini king of the pirates in a funny way. Additionally, a brief, cool connection with Buggy is this absolute Chad move from Oda. After Buggy leaves the island where he's looking for treasure, he talks about a witch fattening up children before eating them. In this sense, he's talking about pirates being allowed to have bounties that grow before they're basically caught. This is a huge shout to Carmel, with Oda 5 heading out hard, because she brought up children to be sold and ultimately was eating herself. Hansel and Gretel vibes. Oh, and by the way, the chapter just so happens to be called The Highest Powers of the World, so we get another God Valley nod there too. But as I say, what will the treasure that Buggy gets be? Well, Carmel specialised in child trafficking, so initially I thought it could be a child. Shanks potentially. We know he was a baby at the God Valley incident and was hidden in a treasure chest by someone. And then I was thinking, what would Xebec want with him? Maybe that's Xebec's son. But ultimately, we know John didn't hide Shanks, I imagine, unless the skull being referenced meant Roger's Jolly Roger. This ties to the god theories, as we've seen aspects of the sun, earth, and forest god already in the story, but no rain. That is except for the ties we see through Vivi, which I also have a video on, which brings me to what I actually think John's treasure really is. I theorize it's a key. Yeah, pretty mundane. In an upcoming video, I'll be explaining what I'm pretty confident the One Piece is, but in short, I think the treasure is a key that can be used to enter the Ancient Kingdom, maybe even on Laugh Tale itself. Luffy won't require the key because all of the required lineages and wills will be present at the time, which will act as the key itself, but I'll go more into that in the What is the One Piece video. So, the one big score is John's treasure. It's likely hidden on Hachinosu, and whatever it is, it's likely not your standard chest full of gold and jewels. I theorise that the one big score is actually a key to Laugh Tale, perhaps accompanied with some ancient knowledge or lore. This would make Buggy Luffy's successor in some ways, as Buggy will hold the key to Laugh Tale and thus the world. Shame he's a boob though. Our last video was about the same topic, but focused more on Kureha herself and the crazy relatives she has. Check that out for more, and next up we've got a video on how the Yami fruit is a moon fruit and how Blackbeard won't just take on Emu, but the whole entire world. But here's a teaser because it ties into the old hag motif that I was discussing earlier. There's an old hag at Hachinosu named Higurashi. Kaido also refers to Big Mom as an old hag, reinforcing this old theme I was talking about. Higurashi actually looks like a demon and resembles a fake Yamato too. Higurashi wears an inverted Sakura kimono, which is a nod to Kureha. In contrast to Kureha, Higurashi has no qualms with death, similar to Doc Q, who I've speculated to be related to Kureha in my past video. Cypherpole were in Wano discussing weapons trade after Higurashi was the one who told Orochi to gather weapons before their rise to power. So here we have similarities with Carmel's illicit trades with the Cypherpole. 41 years before the present day, which is 3 years before the God Valley incident, she turns up in Wano to manipulate Orochi, offering him a potentially very powerful devil fruit. This is when Higurashi showed her familiarity with devil fruits, unlike much of Wano, demonstrating knowledge of both her own fruit and Orochi's. Where did she get these powers? I do want to add that I think the fact that Orochi's dragons look dumb is to show his lack of compatibility with his fruit as well. If someone stronger had it, it may very well be devastating. This might be partly why Oda needed Orochi to die at the end of Wano, so his fruit could be redistributed. As for Kaido, she knew him from the early days. Higurashi approached him 10 years after the God Valley incident to cooperate again on Hachinosu. In chapter 970, we see Higurashi interrupt the duel between Kaido and Odin. In chapter 1043, we see Kaido instantly kill a Cypherpole agent over the same action done by Higurashi in 970. Soon, I'll be dropping a moon theory on how I think Higurashi was another one of these old hags with devil fruit knowledge and was the one to manipulate Blackbeard into rocks, so make sure to sub to keep updated. Right, you've been great. Like, sub, comment, join the Patreon for secrets, Shout out to Dax and 3 Day Trip on this one. They were a couple of big conversations that really moved the whole idea along for me. So big love to them as always. Sub to Dak and follow his Twitch. Check out 3 Day Trip on The Last Ark, a channel I post on every 1 or 2 weeks. If you've made it this far, you've just won a free trip to Raijin Island. Wear shoes in the house. Peace.